Hello, I'm Tone Lanzillo, and this is Climate-Duluth. Today's guest is someone I met quite a while ago through a panel presentation at a Zoom gathering on climate change. Her name is Annette Olson. She's based out of Washington, D.C., and she's involved in more projects than I could probably list in the next 30 minutes. So I would like to welcome Annette to the show. Hey, Annette.
Hey, how are you doing?
It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. Cool. Yeah, it's nice to see you. And you were saying that I do a lot of projects. You also are amazing and doing a lot of good work in, in your city and just really working with communities. So it's really nice to be on your first TV show.
Yeah, it was great. A couple years ago, for the viewers, we did a series of local activists and educators. And with the new series, starting with Annette, we're going to be interviewing people from around the United States and globally. So I really appreciate Annette being on the first guest on our new show. Annette, why don't we just begin, if you want to share a little bit about the Climate Steps program that you have founded and organized, and maybe a little bit about how it began, its mission, and some of the current and future goals.
Yeah, so there's an interesting story behind the founding of Climate Steps in that there was a certain election that happened in 2016 for a new president. And I was very worried about the rollback of potential regulations, environmental protections. So that very week, I decided I was going to become a climate activist. And 2 weeks later, two friends took me to lunch because they wanted to know how to fight climate change. And I've been blogging and communicating on social media, my concerns, but also some ideas. And so we talked a lot about different ideas. Then they decided that I should write a blog. So they said, Annette, you have to write a blog. That's how Climate Steps initially got founded. It was a blog sharing my ideas for how to take climate action. But the number of people that joined, the potential partners, and just the overall need for the mission, for us to fulfill a mission with Climate Steps was just greatly apparent. And the mission of Climate Steps is to answer that question for people is, what can I do to fight climate change? Is to be there with ideas, priorities, what's most impactful, and some mentoring. So 2.5 years ago, I quit my job to turn Climate Steps into a nonprofit because we just needed more work than I could handle alone. I had lots of volunteers, and we're creating a growing organization to get those climate ideas out there. I'm also the co-founder of Earth Hero, which is a climate action app, and the content lead for it in terms of getting the specific actions out there. And I'm a lead for Green Neighbors DC, which is a hyper-local climate action group. And in the process, somehow I've become the de facto city tool librarian. So all of these intertwine. So it's actually very fascinating, but a little exhausting.
Wow. With Climate Steps and Earth Hero, you had mentioned those. What are your plans or hopes for those two initiatives in the future?
Yeah, so Climate Steps is already an organization that has global members, totally around the world. But one of the issues with Climate Steps is that the writing tends to focus on North America actions, or I would say global North actions, for Europe as well. And so one of the long-term goals is to set up chapters for in Climate Steps that are for regional specific actions that really only work in Africa or really only work in Australia. The growth of Climate Steps is, as we get more funding, we're adding researchers because we're science-based. I'm a scientist. I'm a scientist, and everything has to be fact-based. The next goal for Climate Steps is also to build some personalization tools to allow people to say, I'm a renter, I bike to work, what sort of actions suit me? Or I'm I live in a rural environment, what sort of actions can I do? And then another goal is to connect people directly to opportunities in their regions. So find out like who is planting trees, who is cleaning the water, etc.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. For someone who may watch this show and want to get involved or volunteer, how would they go about that?
You can just contact us. There is a page that says get involved, and it lists many ways. So the website is www.climatesteps.org. And just go to the website, to the Get Involved page, and there are different ideas for how you can volunteer for Climate Steps. Okay. And from IT to writing to research to moderating, etc.
Okay. How did the idea for Earth Hero come up? I love the name, but where did that all germinate from?
Yeah, so Earth Hero came up. I had already been working on Climate Steps for almost 2 years, and Ben Gerald, I haven't ever said his last name out loud. He contacted me asking if I would be interested in working on an app with him, because at the time there really was no climate action app out there. So he wanted to start one. I did not have the bandwidth to start one. So I was like, yes, I'll join in, I'll advise. And he also contacted Peter Kalmus at the same week, basically asking him the same question. And Peter, and thus Peter, Ben, and I founded Earth Hero. We didn't come up with the name for like 6 months, but until 6 months later, but we dove in, and with both Peter and I being in the group, it especially, again, we emphasize science-based facts. Really what impacts have been studied by different actions that really are impactful versus those that are kind of like, there may be a myth that, oh, this is impactful or not. So we bring in the science. Ben and some other people calculate carbon emissions for each action. And thus we've pulled it together in an app. We have about almost 90,000 users now, and it's growing rapidly. Apple featured it on Earth Day, and we're all really excited. But it is a lot of work because we don't just say, oh, go, put in some LED light bulbs. We actually do research, and that takes time. So we need volunteers for that.
Yeah, I have to tell people who are watching the show that the Climate Steps website is quite amazing. I've gone to it numerous times, and I've also downloaded the Earth Hero app and participated some in the individual plans and programs. So they're great. I hope people will check them out. When you look back over your life and you look at where you are now with Climate Steps, Earth Hero, and various projects, are there certain moments in your life where you look back and now realize that the environment and climate change became more important to you personally?
Yes, there were 3 defining moments, I think. I've always been kind of an environmentalist since I was a kid. But I went in, worked on my doctorate in tropical biology in Africa, studying mongooses. And I went and there, when I lived in Africa, there I saw massive deforestation. And just the poverty that results from that is incredible. So from that, I knew I wanted to work in conservation. Then for a while, I was working for the Smithsonian Institution in building exhibits. And one exhibit we were building was called Forces of Change. And it was about the North American prairie and some of the forces, including weather and climate, that were impacting it. Through that, I got to meet some climatologists, climate scientists, and they just radiated fear of what was going to happen to the US. And that impacted me greatly. I did go on to work another 15 years in the federal government and nonprofits on general research initiatives, environmental research initiatives, global data systems for environmental data. But climate change was always in my mind. And then it just was there. And then finally I decided I have to focus on this. This is where I'm going.
Okay, cool.
During your life, have there been certain individuals, writers, scientists that you've either looked up to or who've inspired you?
Yes, Michael Oppenheimer, Jim Hansen, Michael Mann. These are all climate scientists. There are a lot of women scientists also out there who have inspired. Catherine Hayhoe definitely being one of them. And there are several others that are stepping up and speaking out. So I've really admired their efforts. Al Gore, his initial work and his continued work has been inspiring, but he has a lot of resources. A lot of other people don't have resources, but they still stand up and speak out. And so they sometimes risk their jobs. So these people have been very inspiring because they really show where we need to focus. Climate change affects every single thing on this planet. And it is the overarching problem that we need to deal with. So knowing that people are doing this and in creative ways really inspired me to go ahead and dive in.
Given that you are based in Washington, D.C., and I know you're very involved in various environmental climate change activities in the Capitol, what do you think are some of the challenges that cities like Washington, Chicago, Philadelphia, or even a small town like Duluth are currently facing or will face?
Yeah, so time is the biggest challenge. We all, from the latest reports, we don't have that much time to turn things around. We are already suffering climate change consequences. So we need to start acting now. It's not waiting for others to act, but we all need to step up to the plate. And I think that's another challenge, is that a lot of people are expecting the government to solve something, including activists. And we have a lot of activists focused on the government. But as we saw with COVID, you have to have buy-in, you have to have support, you have to have the implementation on the ground level. And there needs to be more effort on that. So that's another challenge, is getting people to understand that even though many billionaires and industries are responsible for climate change, we're the ones who are going to have to be implementing the changes in our houses, our transportation, our communities. So we need to do that. I think that leads to another challenge, which is sidelining of individual action. A lot of people say everything has to be collective action, or it has to be at the government level. And individual action, they just they think of or they describe as, okay, you're going to insulate your home or you're going to change your diet, both of which are extremely important things. But individuals can do far more than that. They can interact with their town halls, they can lead rallies, they can serve on planning committees. They can even host a neighborhood potluck around a climate movie or a climate or play a climate game or something, and really help spread the acceptance of climate change. I would say the one thing that's really not so much a challenge as people think is denialism, is climate denialism. That people are out there, but it's not as many people as one think. They're just very vocal. A lot of people do know that climate change is happening. They just need more of an understanding of the rate at which it's happening, and understand that they can make an impact and do their part. And need to do their part. So, yeah.
Some of the things you mentioned we may have to include in our upcoming Climate Week in Duluth. I know, I know when I started writing about climate change and working on some projects, the impact it had on my life. Whereas my friends know I no longer own or drive a car, I no longer fly. Recently, I've been converting our front lawn into a wild garden and flower bin. Don't use plastic bags at the grocery store. For yourself, as you've been working on all these projects, how has it affected your personal life? Have you noticed certain things have changed for you?
Yes. Yeah. So I've been vegetarian for 30 years, and that was originally an environmental decision. It wasn't a climate decision. But going vegetarian is one of the strongest ways, or eating at least more plant-based meals is one of the strongest ways to make an impact. It's considered one of the top 5 solutions to climate change. But in terms of really impacting my life differently, the main one has been that I don't fly anymore. I take the train, which actually is quite lovely. Even though I'm traveling from DC to Texas and I have to take 2 overnights, it's quite comfortable and I get a lot of work done. The other main change, I think, is that I see everything now through a climate lens. It's everything I do, I think of in terms of what's best for others and the planet. And my friends are starting to buy into it now, but I think they were a little frustrated at first. So, but yeah. So I think that's mostly it. Other than, I've insulated my home. I intend to get electric. Actually, I don't know if I'll buy an electric car here, but I may be taking over my dad's farm in East Texas. And if so, we're definitely going to buy an electric truck, because there you need vehicles to get around. Here in the city, I don't so much. I might sell my car.
Okay.
Looking over the next 3 or 4 months, where do you think what will you think you'll be focused on? What will you be working on? Any new projects or initiatives? Or
yeah. So first, we just switched over to a new website, and we're having some formatting issues, and a lot of our images disappeared. So we have to fix that. So that's like one of our top priorities. But the second priority is I have a lot of partners waiting in the wings, and to help leverage information, to bring in more information, to connect to other groups, to really make Climate Steps more of a hub, not just a website, but a hub where people can go and find out basic information and then go where they need to go from there. So that's one of my main goals. I won't accomplish all of that in 3 months, but we're going to get started on that. And the next one is fundraising. It's time for us to go from an all volunteer staff. We have 19, but we need to switch over and become, a functioning organization, like with an accountant, and actually hire some part-time researchers. We need to hire IT. So that is really my focus for the next 3 or 4 months. So writing grants and talking to some potential donors.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You will be busy.
Yeah. And reading some of the articles that come in.
Cool. And I just want
the viewers know that Annette and I had a Zoom meeting a couple weeks ago, and I'm very happy that I'm going to begin writing some pieces, articles for Climate Steps, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Yay.
Yeah. And before we wrap up today, if you were to leave our viewers with any kind of message or reflection that they can take away from our conversation today, what would that be?
If you haven't been involved in climate action before, you have more power than you think. And it's okay to start with easy steps. Some people are adamant, oh, we have to go protest or something like that. There are so many different steps out there that you can mix and match, ones to suit your personal life. And we need you. So we really need change.
Okay.
Yes, I'll make sure that through PACT-TV and social media, we'll definitely share information about the Climate Steps website and the Earth Hero app. And just so our audience knows, we're also going to be highlighting Climate Steps and Earth Hero during Climate Week in Duluth, which will be September 19th through the 26th. So I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you very much, Annette, for being here today, and look forward to working together in the near future.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. So yeah, I look forward to working with you too.
Thanks.
So have a great week. I'll be participating. So
I know you will.
Thanks. In closing, I've always done this. I try to share a quote. And today I'd like to share a quote from a book called Ecological Governance Toward a New Social Contract with the Earth. And actually going to be talking to this gentleman tomorrow. The writer's name is Bruce Jennings. He writes the following: simply put, the ideas and institutions upon which our current capability to respond collectively to climate change rest out of step with the natural realities and threats we are discovering. Our collective capability to take climate stabilizing action is in question. The accumulating body of scientific knowledge and evidence concerning the anthropogenic causes of climate change lends a very high degree of confidence about the challenge, but science alone seems incapable of mustering decisive political action. The human source of climate change is certain, but the human capacity to respond is not. The ecological social contract involves finding a new consciousness and will to curb humankind's destructive economic and ecological behavior, unquote. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us for future interviews with Climate-Duluth. Have a good day.